Today I'm going to show you guys how to mount a loose canvas to a wooden panel. What's up? I'm Anastasia Mac, and I have this painting. Actually, it's more like a painting sketch that I started a long time ago, a few years ago, and I haven't finished for some reason. And in order for me to finish it, this piece of loose canvas that came out of a canvas pad needs to be mounted on something sturdy so I can put it up on my easel to complete it. And I think I'm going to mount it to this cradled wooden panel so that it gives me more support and becomes easier to frame when the painting is completed and I have to frame it later. I think I know why I didn't finish this painting. It was created outdoors in the middle of the winter. I was sitting outside with my butt in the snow. I only painted for about 20 minutes, and I think I decided that mounting and finishing it was just a lot of work. And I've been putting it off for a while, but now it's Chicago winter again, and time to get this done. No more excuses. So follow me to get this mounted so I can finally finish this piece. Also, a lot of times people ask, why would you even start a painting on loose canvas? Because it saves space, because that's what I had at the time. I just grabbed a sheet of canvas, and it was much easier to carry when you're painting en plein air or when you're painting outdoors. That's why. So first order of business is to open the panel out of its plastic packaging, of course. And I like using a cradled panel instead of a piece of plywood because it has more support in the back. If this was plywood, it would be at risk of warping. And it doesn't matter as much with smaller sized paintings because they're not as likely to warp or with smaller sized panels. However, as you go larger, this cradling here really helps to prevent that kind of stuff, to prevent them being uneven and warped. And also using good quality wood helps with much larger sized panels. Step number 2 is that you have to seal the panel to create a barrier between the panel and your canvas. And the reason you have to create a barrier is so that if panel has any chemicals in it, it prevents it from leaking into or getting in touch with your canvas to keep your sealing process truly archival. For sealing my panel, I'm going to use Liquitex Matte Medium. And I'm kind of laughing as I say this because I use matte medium in like 80% of my videos for all kinds of different purposes. So this time I'm going to use it for sealing my panel. Instead of using matte medium to seal your panel, you can use other things like shellac. Is it shellac or shellac? My accent is getting in the way. Shellac, 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 right? I'm applying a little bit of the matte medium, a thin coat, spreading it with a brush, a little bit more. You kind of have to look at it in the light to make sure that there's full coverage. Then, once it is coated, you would want to let it dry for about, about 20 minutes or so. It dries relatively fast, but do ensure that it's fully dry to create that solid seal. Some people like to give it more than one coat of a sealing liquid. 2 coats is fine. I stick with 1. That seems to be sufficient, and it works for my mounting. All right, this baby is fully dry now, so the painting is ready to be mounted. My painting size here is just a tad larger than the panel. The panel size is 8 by 10. If you have a painting with a lot of extra room around, you may want to use a pencil to mark where the painting would go on the panel just to ensure that everything aligns correctly. With this little piece, I don't have to do that. I'm just gonna mount it into the center and then trim all the excess edges. For this step, I have prepared my brush, my mounting glue. For mounting, I actually use Liquitex gloss gel. It is kind of similar to Liquitex matte medium, but it is thicker. And the reason I use gloss gel instead of matte medium for anything on a cradled panel is because I feel that it holds it better. I guess it adheres better. It's completely archival, so it's not something that is going to yellow over time. I have observed that different artists have different preferences for what they use to mount their canvases. So it's kind of, it's almost a personal preference. So for others, it may be rabbit skin glue or PVA glue or anything else that art stores sell that is considered to be a glue and archival. Don't use Elmer's glue or anything of that sort because it's not going to last. It's not going to look good in a few years. And last but not least, I have prepared a roller to push all the bubbles out. I open up my jar of this gel. It's actually brand new. Ooh. And then I dip my brush in it and apply pretty thin coat, but thick enough to give it full coverage. And this gel also comes in matte texture, but I like glossy texture better for mounting process because if something accidentally sticks to it, like a piece of paper or something like that, it will be easier to separate it out, to remove it. I don't know, I just like gloss gel. To me, it just works better. All right, so this coat is pretty decent here. Maybe just a little bit more. You can go ahead and put your brush in the sink now and rinse it out later, but don't let it dry out. Don't waste your brushes. And now I press my canvas onto the panel. And this process is the same for all sizes. If you have a very large cradled panel and canvas, you follow the same instructions, but you have to really go over it with your hands and press down on it and make sure that there is no excess mountain medium piled up in certain areas. So to help bring out any of the bubbles, I go over it with a roller in all the directions. And if any of the excess stuff comes out on the edges, like here, I just wipe it down with a paper towel. For larger sized canvases, the rolling part is a lot more involved. You really have to go over it multiple times just to make sure that everything is flat. And go over it with your hands. Feel for any bumps, any air pockets. You're gonna thank yourself in the end. So this one is done. Well, it's mounted. Now it has to dry, but in order to dry in the best way possible, I have to cover it with something flat and weight it down. For some artists, future removability of the canvas is important. So for example, if this painting has to be exhibited in the future without the panel, if it makes it into a museum or something like that, it may have to be removed. And for that purpose, if removability is important to you, you should be looking for a mounting medium that allows for that. For example, certain glues break down with water. For me, call me crazy, but I don't think this painting is going to be in a museum. So I'm going to take my chances and stick with gloss gel medium and leave it at that. Now my flat object for drying is going to be just a larger panel. I like using something that is wrapped in plastic. The reason for that is if any of the mounting glue gets on top of my canvas accidentally, plastic will prevent it from getting stuck. Plastic can be peeled off very easily. If you have like raw wood or something like that, sticking may be an issue. So then if you get accidentally a drop of your medium or glue on the outside of the canvas, then wood is going to stick to the outside of it, and it's basically going to mount itself to the side of canvas that you don't want it to be on. And I cover it up nice and flat, and now you need a weight. Anything heavy, books, boxes. This is a small piece, so it doesn't require a crazy amount of weight, but I'm gonna use this brick. All right. Because, you know, every artist has a brick in their studio, right? Why wouldn't you have a brick in your studio? So now I'm gonna leave it here for a few hours and come back to it later. The brick has some dirt on it. Sorry. It's a fresh brick. Fresh out of the ground. Okay, it's been a day of drying time for this painting. Let's see what it looks like. Not too bad. And now it is time to trim the canvas excess around the perimeter of the piece so that the remaining canvas is flush to the edges of the panel. And I'm going to use my X-Acto knife for the trimming. If you're able to, try to point away from the panel a little bit so that you don't cut into the wood with your sharp knife. My edges don't have to be very perfect because I intend to frame this painting. So they're slightly, just a tad uneven, but that doesn't bother me too much. So now I'm all set, and this painting has plenty of support and is ready to be worked on an easel, so that I can stand it up and actually finish it. This is it. This is how I mount my canvases. It's not a universal method, it's my personal method. Artists can do it in all kinds of different ways. And this method has been working for me for, let's see, more than 10 years so far. Do you have anything to add? Do you have any questions? Do you have a different way of mounting yours? Let me know in the comments. And in the next video, I'm actually going to finish this painting, so make sure you subscribe or check back in to see how it comes out. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.